Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me present my lab of practical DevOps, and also so I'll also be discussing about DevOps as well. So a big thanks to Nal Dubai and Sir Prahlad Chaster for giving me this opportunity to speak in this chapter. So yes, so Prahlad has already introduced about myself, so I'll just skip that. And just a small agenda of what we are going to do. So first thing, I'm not having any slides because almost everything that I wanted to capture on slides is present on my blog, right? So if you just go to rohitsalechha.com, you should be able to see everything that's there. So what are we going to do? We're going to understand what DevOps is from a technical perspective, from a practical perspective, because DevOps is a very big keyword, right? So there are a lot of cultural aspects associated, and there are a lot of technical aspects associated with DevOps. Okay. Uh, yes. Yeah. Thanks, Prahlad. Yeah. So if you have any questions during the so if you have any questions, I'd request you to please put it on chat, and after I'm done with my presentation, I'll take the set of questions separately. Right. So yeah. So what are we going to discuss today? We're going to discuss about DevOps from a technical perspective. Uh, how exactly a developer, once the developer checks in the code, right, it goes into its software code repository or SCM, and then it gets built by Jenkins, and how Jenkins basically prepares the Docker images, pushes those Docker images to a Docker registry, and we have a server which basically pulls that Docker image from the registry, runs that Docker image, and finally all the logs from the staging, from the production environment, are shipped into the ELK stack, right? So a lot of new technologies over here, a lot of new keywords over here we're going to discuss. Okay. So first thing I want to start is running my lab, right? So if you guys have already set it up, right? First thing that you might want to do is just follow this guide to set up the entire lab, and these are the prerequisites to set it up locally on your machine. Okay, and yeah, so let's begin with setting up my lab. Quickly move on to Jenkins. Right. The first thing that we want to configure in Jenkins are the credentials. Right. So first set of credentials, so we need to add secret text, and all the details are present, right? So this is the Jenkins configuration. This is so these are the two credentials that we need to first just fill out this. This PWR. The set of credentials that we need to configure is MySQL DB password, and that is test. Now we are done with configuring this. One last item to do in Jenkins in configuration is also have your mail server configured. I've mentioned it over here. Right? So just scroll down. You just have to put mail.devops and runs SMTP port is 1025. Let's do a test configuration. Here you can see we've got our test email. Okay. Let's save this. Now in Jenkins, we need to first create a new job, right? Let's create a new job called DevOps pipeline. So there are multiple options over here. We are selecting pipeline because what we are doing is we have basically created a file called as Jenkins file, in which we are putting in all the instructions that need to be followed by Jenkins. Now, what this Jenkins file is, we'll discuss that in a bit, right? So just hold on for the next 10 minutes. I just want to start the lab, start the entire process, and then I'll go ahead and explain each and every aspect about it. So these are some cleanup things that we need to do. And this is a very important configuration, which basically lies at the crux of the entire DevOps process. So what we are basically informing Jenkins over here is every minute poll the source code repository for any new commit, right? Now we need to provide provide the location of this Jenkins file. Right now, this the location of this Jenkins file is over here. Sorry, right? So this is my project over here, and this is an open source project. It's publicly available, right? So all that we need to do is just provide the location of this particular project over here. My CM is JIT, repository URL. Since it's public, I don't think so we need to enter any credentials. I don't know why this is asking for credentials, but I guess we can go ahead and still add the credentials. I'll just go ahead and add my SSH key. Okay, so let me get my SSH key. Okay, let's go back here. Refresh this page. Enter everything again. Now that error is gone, right? And here we have to basically provide the path to the Jenkins file. Generally, it's a best practice to have the Jenkins file in the root of your repo, right? So you can see it over here as well. We have the Jenkins file at the root of our repo. Now, before I click on save over here, there's one more step that I need to do is replace this particular token with the newly generated token that I have over here. And then I'll just go ahead and stage my changes, and then I'll commit them, and then push my changes. So let's just verify if our changes have been recorded. So yes, latest comments was 13 seconds ago. So our changes have now been recorded. So let's go ahead and click save. Right. Now let's go ahead and click build now. All right. So now as our pipeline is building, okay, let's discuss about uh, different things about DevOps. So DevOps, if you ask me, practically DevOps is basically divided into four main streams: infrastructure as code, continuous integration, continuous delivery slash deployment, and continuous monitoring. Right now, in a traditional approach, what we had a static server, a bare bones server, or maybe a virtual machine which is configured with the Tomcat server, Tomcat web server. So today, if let's say you want to basically deploy a Java application, right, you need a Tomcat server, which is like hardly 20-30 MBs, right? Or maybe a JBoss server or a WebLogic server. But in order to put that, but in order to run that WebLogic or JBoss server, you need a base operating system, right? So you would basically have an Ubuntu or a Red Hat or a CentOS virtual machine, and then you would basically go ahead and deploy that particular Tomcat server, right? Now, what are the steps that would be required to actually, set up that virtual machine? First, you would download the ISO. Then you would, run the ISO through VirtualBox or VMware or whatever software that you have, right? You create a clean image, you take a snapshot, and then you start provisioning your new machine, right? So if you want a Tomcat server, you'll do apt get Tomcat, and then basically start up your Tomcat server. Now, this entire process of downloading the ISO, creating snapshots, provisioning your virtual machine, right? This entire steps can take anywhere from 4 hours to even 4 weeks. I have seen certain organizations where creating a virtual machine or creating a deployable service, right, takes anywhere around 4 hours to 4 weeks. Even I've seen organizations where a simple Tomcat server was taken like almost 3 or 4 days to get provisioned, right, for deploying into a production environment, right. Now, this is where one of the most important and my most favorite topic on DevOps comes into play is infrastructure as code. So, what is infrastructure as code? Right, infrastructure as code is basically you need to write whatever you want, whatever software you want, whatever program you want. You should be able to write it in few lines of code, right? So let's say I want a simple, I want to set up a simple Docker registry, right? So if you guys can check this out, let me share this. Right? So if you guys can check this out, I've created a simple environment where using Vagrant and Ansible, I am basically creating a Docker registry in less than 256 MB of RAM, and everything in a few lines of code, right? So this is the Vagrant file. So what is Vagrant doing? So there are a lot of technologies associated with infrastructure as code. You must have heard some of these names: Vagrant, Ansible, Docker, Kubernetes. Then we have Packer, Chef, Puppet, Terraform, right? Broadly, all these technologies are basically very broadly divided into two parts. First is infrastructure provisioning, infrastructure technologies that basically set up your infrastructure or create your infrastructure. And second are configuration management technologies, right? So stuff like Vagrant, Terraform are basically your infrastructure setup technology. So what Vagrant or Terraform do is in a few lines of code, you can basically tell Vagrant that I want a system in which the base operating system is Alpine or Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat. The IP address should be this. Uh, the disk size should be 5 GB. The memory should be 256 MB, right? So Vagrant will basically go ahead and set up the entire. Vagrant will basically go ahead and set up the entire virtual machine for me, right? So by just giving one single command, so Vagrant up, and it will go ahead and set up the entire virtual machine for me with all the requisite details that I want. Now, once my virtual machine has been set up by Vagrant, the next thing that I want to do is basically install Docker, right? So, what are the steps to install Docker? So these are the steps, or these are the commands that are required to install Docker. So these commands also I have easily codified into my Vagrant environment, right? So through Vagrant, you can basically use this shell, simple shell scripts, or you can use a much more stronger and much more reliable software called as Ansible. So Ansible is a provisioning software which once you have set up your Vagrant environment, or you set up your virtual machine, you can basically write in a few lines of code that what do you want to do. So what I'm doing over here, I'm just declaring two variables, right? The directory name and the port on which I want to set up my Docker registry. Then my first task, so Ansible basically runs on tasks, and my first task is to create a Docker registry. So here I'm basically creating not a Docker registry, sorry, creating a folder. So here I'm basically creating a folder or a directory with this particular name, right? The owner is Vagrant and the mode of access is 755, right? And after that, I am basically executing a Docker container. So I'm basically executing a Docker run command, right? So using a few simple lines of code, I can have an entire system with IP address, RAM, and everything configured in just 256 MB of RAM. So this is the power of infrastructure as code, and this entire DevOps lab that I have created, I've created with the help of Vagrant and Ansible. So so this is my Vagrant file, right? And as you can see, I'm basically looping over a few hosts, and the details of those hosts are present in the host.yaml file, right? So here you can see I'm giving that my first machine is registry.devops. It should be of this IP address. This is the CPU's memory, the base OS that I want, whether I want Docker, who's the provisioner, etc., etc. So you can provide any details over here, and then basically loop it within Vagrant. So what Vagrant will do is basically create all those machines that I've provided in the hosts.yaml file, right? And after Vagrant has set up that particular virtual machine, what I want to do is uh, basically go ahead and create create those particular services, right? So here I want a Docker registry. So what I'm doing again, I'm just simply writing this in a playbook, right, and providing the instructions, right? So I hope everybody understood what Vagrant is, right? It's basically a software to set up virtual machines, and Ansible is basically a software to provision that machine or provision our software into that particular machine, right? Now, the best way to learn how to do Ansible is to learn how to execute Ansible is to basically first write down what are the commands that you want to fire, right? So here you can see these are the commands that I want. These are the commands to set up a Logstash server. So first thing I want is to set up a JRE. Then I want to download the Elasticsearch APT key. Then I'm installing the apt transport https. Then I'm basically adding the sources list to Elastic, then doing apt get update, doing logstash, right? And then enabling logstash as a service and simply starting the logstash server, right? So these are the commands that are used, that are basically used in setting up a logstash server. Now let's look at the corresponding commands for the logstash server that we've captured in a simple role. So this is the elk logstash, and these are the set of tasks, right? So so this is just the main.yaml file where I'm basically pulling the install.yaml file, and here you can see what are the first thing that we are doing. We are basically adding the apt key, then we are adding the apt repository, then then we are installing the particular packages that are required, right? And then we are again installing the logstash as a package, right? Now it's very important that the apt transport https package is present before you go ahead and install the logstash package, and that is the reason why I have first written this, and then I've basically gone ahead and written the logstash particular package. Now, after my logstash package has been installed, the next thing that I want to do is copy my logstash.yaml file, right? And here is the templates logstash.yaml file, which is having some pre-configured data, right? And the next thing that I want to do is, sorry, yeah. So next thing that I want to do is create my Logstash pipeline. So in order to create my Logstash pipeline, I need the pipeline configuration code. And here is my pipeline configuration code, which is basically in spring.conf. Sorry, it's here. This is the springular.conf code, right? So using just this simple file install.yaml, I have basically configured my entire Logstash server. Now I can basically check in this code, distribute this code, and help my entire team set up that same Logstash server across all systems, right? So you basically get consistency. So next time, right, in a DevOps environment, so if you have ever seen or worked in a DevOps environment, you will never hear this phrase that, it's working in my environment, it's working in my development environment, I don't know why things are not working in production, right? You'll never hear that phrase. The reason why you'll never hear that phrase is because of infrastructure as code, right? Because of infrastructure as code, what you get is consistency across your different environments, right? And another technology that is part of the infrastructure as code is something that you must have also heard a lot of, is Docker, right? So Docker, again, very simple. So Docker simplifies things a lot more than Vagrant plus Ansible, right? Now here I want to basically just have a simple Java environment to run my jar file, right? I just want, this is my problem statement. I want a Java environment to run my jar file. Now I don't want to create a virtual machine, then install Java, then push my jar file into the virtual machine, and then manually run the command. So what do? I simply install just one software, that is Docker. I create a Docker file, right? And I build this particular Docker file using this command, docker build -t test.test jar dot, right? Hyphen t is basically a tag, so this is the tag that we have given, and I can simply run this command. I can simply execute this command, docker run -p 80908080, and run this particular Docker image and execute my and basically access my application, right? So only 4 steps, create a Docker file, build your Docker file, right? So build your Docker image, run your Docker container, and access your application, right? Very simple, right? So this is where Docker comes in use a lot, and organizations like Netflix and Flickr, right? They all have like millions and millions of Docker containers running at any moment, at any particular time, right? So Docker is one very interesting technology, and we are also using Docker in our lab. So let's go ahead and see where our lab is building. So yes, you can see it's waiting for approval. Earlier, our staging environment was down, and now you can see my staging environment is live, right? And this is my production environment also, which has now gone live. Okay, there seems to be some problem. So in Jenkins, you basically have this Open Blue Ocean, which is a fantastic, which is a fantastic plugin within Jenkins, through which you can click on a particular stage and then observe or view the data. So it seems there is some problem that has occurred, and as you can see, it seems that Jenkins took up a stale build or an old build. It did not pick up our commit that we had done with this particular token, and that is the reason why Jenkins has failed. So let's go ahead and build it again. Absolutely no problem. You'll see the difference over here in a few moments. Okay, I don't know why it's not picking it up. So let me just cancel this build and let me rerun it again. This is screen open. Let's verify. Okay, there seems to be some problem in my Vault server. Doesn't seem to have started properly. Never mind. So we'll just look at the other thing that I wanted to explain is the next thing that I wanted to explain is this Jenkins file, right? So Jenkins is basically what you can say is the kind of the WordPress of the DevOps world, right? It is most commonly used piece of software around in a DevOps environment, right? And the best way to understand what Jenkins does and what this Jenkins file is to imagine the conveyor belt on a factory, right? So if you have ever seen a factory, you must have seen that the raw materials are pushed on from the beginning, right? And basically you keep adding data, you basically keep processing that particular raw material at different places as the conveyor belt keeps moving, right, at different stages. So this Jenkins pipeline is also something very similar to that conveyor belt, where we are basically breaking down the entire build process, right? The entire process of building your application, pushing it into production, pushing it into production, is basically broken down into different stages. So the first stage is the build stage. And what are we doing in the build stage? First thing that we are doing is we are just doing some cleanup, right? So this command will basically clean up the existing Docker images that are there just for sanity purposes. The next thing that we are doing is we are basically building our front end and our building our back end and our front end. Now if you check out the code, there are two folders, backend and front end. So backend is basically my API service, right? And front end API service built on Spring Boot Java framework, and the front end is basically our AngularJS application, right? So first thing that we are doing is we are basically building our pom.xml, right? And the pom.xml basically contains the dependencies of our entire Java application. So first we are doing is we are creating the jar file over here, and similarly with AngularJS, what we are doing is we are building our Angular application. So in AngularJS world, uh, package.json is where all your dependencies are stored, right? So once we have our builds ready, what we are doing is we are basically archiving our builds, right? Now in this Vagrant environment, if you want to access any particular server, all you have to do is just vagrant ssh archiver.devops, right? So you just need to put the name of that server in front of the vagrant ssh command. And it will basically give us access into the archiver server. And here you can see we have the archiver folder where we are separately storing our backend and our front end archives. Let's look at the backend. And here you can see our jar files are basically stored. Now the jar files are basically annotated with the commit ID, right? So we first take the commit ID and we are basically renaming the jar file to the commit ID and then pushing it into our archiver folder, right? Now this Jenkins file that I'm using, within this Jenkins file, I'm using SSH steps plugin, which basically helps in SSHing into different servers. So you can get, put, or you can even execute commands into remote servers, right? So here I'm basically configuring the archiver folder and archiver server and its corresponding keys into this particular Jenkins file, right? So this is my archive stage where I'm basically archiving my data. The reason why I'm doing it is if the build fails, if the Jenkins build fails, I can always go ahead and fetch back the particular build that destroyed it, so that I can go ahead and rerun it in a separate environment and understand why the build failed, right? So basically just to perform root cause analysis kind of a thing, right? And second most important reason why you should be archiving your builds is because it's not a good practice to store your build artifacts in your source code repository, right? Your source code repository is only meant for storing your source code, right? Now the next stage that we are doing is staging setup stage. Now in this staging setup stage, what we are doing is we are building our Docker image, right? So you remember the Docker build command that I shown just a while ago. So we are building our Docker image, and the Docker file for the front end is can be viewed under the front end folder and Docker file, right? So here we are basically doing a multi-stage Docker build, right? First we are basically fetching the source code, right? And then we are running npm run build command. And after that, the distribution or the entire distribution folder or the all the HTML pages are being pushed into an Nginx server, right? So that's the first thing. So we are building the Docker, we are building a Docker image. Next, we are pushing a Docker image to a centralized Docker registry, right? Then we are removing the Docker images from within the Jenkins system. So all these commands that I'm firing over here, they are all being fired within the Jenkins server, right? Similarly, for API, we are building the Docker images, right? For the database, we are not using a Docker file. Rather, we are using the Docker run command to simply start our database in the staging environment. So I'm basically SSHing into my staging environment, and then I'm executing the Docker run command. Now let's look at this practically. Right, so this was our first stage. So this is our archive command. You can see the archive command in execution, right? The UI, everything in execution, right? Then the staging setup stage. First, let's look at the API. So here you can see our Docker build command is being executed, right? It's building a Docker container. Sorry, it's building a it's building a Docker image and then pushing a Docker image to the Docker registry, right? Similarly for UI as well, we are doing the same thing, right? And at the same time, we are also executing our Docker run in our staging environment. So you see, all these three stages are basically running in parallel thanks to this parallel directive over here in Jenkins, right? So all these three commands are basically running in parallel or executing in parallel. Now the next step is, or the next stage is their staging deploy stage. What are we doing here is, we are first doing a sleep for 5 seconds, just knobs, giving some time for our MySQL Docker container to get up and running. And then what we are doing is we are running a Docker run command, right? And what are we doing in our Docker run command? In our Docker run command, we are basically we are basically pulling the staging API, the staging image from our Docker registry and executing that particular container, right? That staging container. So in staging deploy, you can see over here, right? So this is exactly what we are doing. Okay. And after that, after our staging environment has been set up, so you can also view the staging environment running. Yeah. Can you view the staging environment running over here? And the production backend production or the API server is not seem to be running right now. Okay, we'll skip this for now, right? And once our staging environment has been set up, we can basically then run some UAT tests that we want to run. So if we have any unit test scripts that we want to execute, we can go ahead and run those unit test scripts, right? Now the advantage of codifying everything over here is because everything is now automated, right? So the moment I push in my code, all these stagings, all these commands will be executed, and our staging environment will be up and running, right? And after that, the production setup stage is exactly similar as the staging setup stage, right? The reason why we are having it exactly similar as the staging setup stage is very simple, because we want our we want the staging and the production environment to be exactly same, right? And yes, and then we have the production deploy stage. Now the only manual thing that we are doing is we are just approving our deployment over here, right? So we're just approving the deployment, which you must have seen over here, right? I just gave the sorry, over here, that I gave the approval to go ahead and deploy the application into production, right? So this is the Jenkins, or what we call as the continuous delivery part, right? So continuous delivery is achieved through creating this Jenkins file, which is also called as pipeline as code. So you must have heard about this term called as pipeline as code, where this entire Jenkins pipeline is executed. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show is the Elasticsearch and the entire ELK stack. But unfortunately, our production app is not working. Let's just see if it's working. The UI seems to have been changed. Yeah. So our production app is not working, but however, we look at it in the staging environment. So as you can see, so if I just add another user over here, so let's say test at the rate DevOps, right? And now we can real time view the data, right? So here you can see the data that I entered can be viewed real time over here. Now this looks very cluttered, so you can basically add the particular data, that particular fields that you want to check, right? Right. So how is this magic happening? So what we are doing is basically uh, we have a software called as FileBeats, right? So FileBeats is installed on the staging and on the production environment, and that can be seen over here. So under infrastructure, you can look at the staging, or you can also look at the production environment. I'm basically installing FileBeat, right? And what I'm instructing FileBeats to do is to read all the log files from this particular folder, right? Read all the log files from this particular folder and push it to Logstash, right? So FileBeats will take the log files, will ship the log files to Logstash. And what Logstash will do, so Logstash basically will ingest the log files and process that particular logs, uh, 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 convert them into different fields, right? You can see all these were different fields that were actually whatever data you can see over here. These are the different fields that Logstash has basically uh, parsed from the raw HTTP request, right? So, everybody must have seen a raw HTTP request, right? The raw HTTP request looks very unstructured, right? And this is where Logstash comes very handy, because what Logstash does is basically uh, converts that entire HTTP request into different fields and pushes it into Elasticsearch, right? So Elasticsearch is, as you know, is an unstructured database. So you can push any type of data into Elasticsearch and then basically perform queries or view it on in Kibana, right? So this is our Elasticsearch that is running, and you can see it has plenty of indexes already created, right? And finally, we have Kibana. So Kibana is the view layer on top of Elasticsearch. It basically looks at the Elasticsearch data, and it fetches all these fields that are there in the Elasticsearch, and we can now view all the data real time, right? So so DevOps is infrastructure as code, continuous integration. Continuous integration is basically pushing your code into a central Git repository. Continuous delivery, that is achieved through Jenkins, and finally we have continuous monitoring, which is achieved through this entire ELK stack, right? This entire Elasticsearch stack, right? So I highly encourage everyone to go ahead and try out this entire DevOps lab. Right, you can find all the details over here. Right, so that was all from my end. I'll just look at the questions. Sagar has asked the question with the same SSH key. You can commit build in staging and production. Same token is used for staging and production. So Sagar, here in my environment, I'm having different SSH keys. So if you look at this Jenkins file over here, so in my Jenkins file, the staging key is different and the production key is different, right? And if you're talking about the yeah, and if you're talking about the same token is used for staging and production, then no. In the staging environment, if you see, my credentials were basically being passed in clear text over here. You can see the MySQL DB password. It's being passed directly over here. But in case of my production environment, I'm basically making use of a software called as HashiCorp Vault, and I had delivered a talk on Vault a few weeks back, and here is all the details of that talk. You guys are feel free to go ahead and check out the Vault secrets management you're using Vault as well. SNKR is asking what is the main difference between DevOps and DevSecOps. So that's a very interesting question, Shankar. I hope that's your name. So so here in DevOps, so let me open Jenkins to better explain you this. So here in DevOps, as you can see, what we are doing here is we are first setting up the staging environment over here, right? Now, in case of DevSecOps, what you can do is before you set up the staging environment, you can basically run your security tools for software composition analysis, for static analysis, security testing, and so on, right? So within Jenkins itself, you can integrate your tools, right? Your FindSig bugs or your dependency checker, etc., etc., within Jenkins over here, right? And execute those tools, and then let your pipeline proceed, right? So DevSecOps is all about integrating the tools at different stages in your entire DevOps pipeline. Okay. Anybody, any more questions? What is the best practice to use secure token? So Sagar, the best practice to use secure token is basically first thing is that do not give access to your vault server to your developer. Your developers should have access only to the particular token, right? Your vault server should not be accessible to the developer. It should be accessible only to the applications that are running in that particular environment, right? So yeah, right. Yes. So Sagar, you can look at my talk. I had delivered a talk on the same subject. You can check it out over here. I guess there is a recording as well. Yes, there is a recording of the webinar that I had delivered on secrets management using HashiCorp. Okay. So in order to understand DevSecOps, the Shankar is actually planning to take a session on how to integrate security tools in the future. So Shankar, not really sure about that. I'll definitely let you guys know if there is any such plan. Sagar is asking, I'm new in DevSecOps, so from where I have to start. So Sagar, so DevSecOps is a very small subset of DevOps. So what I would suggest is first learn what is DevOps, right? First learn what is CI, CD, IAC, and CM. And if you run my lab, you will be able to basically get a hands-on practice on basically how to do DevOps, right? And then DevSecOps is all about integrating these tools into your DevOps pipeline. Okay, any more questions, anyone? Okay, so thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for inviting me for being a part of Null Dubai. And also thanks to the Null Dubai team and thanks to Sir Prahlad Chaskar to give me this opportunity again. Right, you guys can always get in touch with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, wherever, or even email, wherever you guys are, however you guys are comfortable. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Rohit. Rupam, can you